Okay, so this is one of the series on genetics, and in most exams we usually get a family tree for analysis, and then we are asked what do you think about the inheritance pattern. So today we will be talking about specifically about the autosomal dominant inheritance, and for family tree analysis purpose, these three conditions should be satisfied to say for sure that yes, this is an autosomal dominant inheritance. So if you analyze a family tree, and let's say all the generation have an affected individual, so you can say, okay, this is for sure a uh, dominant inheritance pattern. For instance, if you see here the parental generation, and then there is the F1 and F2 generation, all of the generation have one or more than one affected individual. So the first part, which is the dominance pattern, is satisfied here. Now this is not only this is not sufficient to say, okay, that this is autosomal, because there may be this may be an X-linked dominance. So how we will differentiate the other two features will actually be differentiating factors, and that is number one, the male and female will be equally affected. But the third feature of autosomal dominant inheritance is actually what differentiates it from an X-linked dominant inheritance. So for instance, if you see here, yes, we can say that all of the generation had affected individuals, so we say it's a dominant inheritance pattern. Then we see, okay, males affected, females are also affected, male affected here. Here, if you can see, almost an equal number of male and female affected, so this could be an autosomal dominant inheritance. But the third part, which is that both parents can transfer the affected gene to equally to their male and female offspring, and this is what differentiates an autosomal dominant pattern of inheritance from an X-linked dominant inheritance. Because in an X dominant inheritance, the father will only be transferring the affected gene to female and not to male, because a male inherits X chromosome, Y chromosome from the father, while the X chromosome and female does come from father. So in X-linked dominant inheritance, the father will be only transferred to the gene to female, and you will see in that generation female will only be affected. But here you can see the mother is affected and she is transferring the gene to female, male here. The male is affected here and he is transferring the gene to both female and male. So this the affected gene must be on an autosome, not a sex chromosome. So when these three criteria are met in a family tree analysis, you can for sure say that it's autosomal dominant inheritance. Now coming down to other feature of autosomal and dominant inheritance, that heterozygous, if you are heterozygous for the condition, mean you have only one affected pair of gene, one affected allele or gene, the phenotype will be affected. Like you will have, for instance, a disease like achondroplasia. So if you have one of the gene affected, yes, you will have the disease. Okay, but there are certain features that will be like the non-penetrance phenomenon, as seen in autosclerosis. So here the thing is that you might have an one of the allele or one of the gene will be affected, but you will not be phenotypically abnormal. So if you're not phenotypically abnormal, it means that the condition is not fully penetrant. So, and it is seen in autosclerosis because 40% of the individual are only affected and 60% remain normal. Similarly, there is another phenomenon that is called new mutation. So sometimes you will find a family tree in which the parents will not have the condition, but down the line, the offspring will have the condition. So this can only be explained by a new mutation. And actually, to have the analysis of such family trees are difficult, but for exam purposes, what happened that they will give you, for instance, here we have a totally unaffected family, uh, P generation, the parental generation, but here we you get the unaffected. Sorry, this is not the right. Uh, let's say this is male affected, female affected here, and there will be some normal individual also in the F1 generation. So if you see such generation, so for exam purposes they will be giving you some more generation down the line to actually for you to analyze that yes, this is kind of, like for instance they will be giving here you another generation in which male and female will almost be equally affected, and they will be giving you, for instance, from here another generation, like here from female they will be giving you another generation. So down the line then you can analyze it. Yes, this is kind of the uh, uh, autosomal dominant pattern. So this is definitely an autosomal pattern, because here the father can transfer it to both the female and male, and the mother is able to transfer the gene to both the male and female. So it is autosomal dominant. But if you look at the parental generation, it is unaffected. So it happens sometime that actually one of the parent here had a mutation down the line in the gonads, are when gonads were forming, and it could be seen very often in achondroplasia. Achondroplasia, the parents will be all normal, and then there will be children that are affected. So, and it is usually related to the age of paternal age. Uh, so you can see such family trees, and with the P generation will be not affected, but down the line the inheritance pattern will follow the same rule as discussed above. So it's very difficult sometimes, but you have to look down and you have to work hard, and you can say that okay, this generation had a mutation, and down the line it follows the same pattern. Similarly, there is another condition that called mosaicism. So some of the cells in the parents will be normal, and let's say if the gonad is normal, so it's very unlikely for the parent to transfer the gene to the offspring. And there is another thing, that is two-head hypothesis, and it is usually seen in the cancer susceptibility, for instance in case of retinoblastoma. So you inherit one head from the parents, and so you are the cancer susceptibility in that case will be that you are uh, definitely susceptible. And if down the line in the life, if you get the second hit on the gene, you will get the condition, otherwise you will avoid the condition. So it's another kind of feature of autosomal dominant inheritance. Now, one thing is that is usually asked on exam, that what percentage of the patients will be affected if it's an autosomal condition. So for that you have to draw the Mendelian table. For instance, we have one parent that is a heterozygote, heterozygous for the condition. Let's say the condition is achondroplasia. So let's say this is the father and a normal mother. So if we these are the combination that are the possible conditions. These are the possible combination here. So if you see the 50% of chance, these individuals are actually affected because they have an abnormal gene. So you have a 50% of chance to be affected. 50% of a chance to be affected. In each pregnancy there is a chance of 50%. Either you will be normal or you have the affected gene and you will have the condition. So this is another feature of autosomal dominant inheritance, that if any of the parent is affected in a heterozygous condition, there is a 50% chance that you or that the offspring will be affected, or 50% of chance that he or she will be normal. So thank you so much. This was one for the autosomal dominant pattern, and next we will be discussing autosomal recessive and so forth and so on. You should also remember some of the conditions like achondroplasia is one of the example of autosomal. Usually the familial conditions. Usually, if we have certain like familial hypercholesterolemia. So these are all the conditions that usually which have the prefix familial, they are autosomal dominant. Similarly, we have neurofibromatosis, New Nain syndrome, uh, tuberous sclerosis. There are other tuberous sclerosis and Marfan syndrome. Uh, Similarly, osteogenesis imperfecta, and we have autosclerosis, another condition, polyposis coli. So these are some of the example of autosomal dominant condition. I hope that will be sufficient for today. And next video, we'll be discussing the other pattern of inheritance.